doing. People say, oh, well, what's the curriculum? Curriculum's in common. Tells you what you have to do. It's pretty straightforward. I don't care how you do it, for the most part. I need to make sure at the end of the year, the skills that are outlined there are the things that the kids can do. And if you've proven to me, and yourself, and to the student, and to the parents, that they can do it to the level that we've gone ahead and established, whether it's mastery, proficient, immersion, or whatever. Power, okay, that's the grading platform that we use for those of you who are new. Okay, and it's our informational storage system where we do discipline, attendance, and you do grades. Power School is going to be aligned to that. It's probably going to be hinky. It's going to be herky-jerky here and there. Like we submitted a whole bunch of stuff. I had some deadlines we had to meet. The department has helped me do that in May. That was really good. We sent them everything. Now what's going to happen is we've had changeover in staff, and there's probably going to be some change. So we're going to be stuck with some things that we don't like. We're going to have to work very hard to make sure that in the second point being the second market period, that we're all set, that the stuff that we want, that listed for standards are there. Okay, so it's not as easy as us being able to just go ahead and load it in. I'm going to need help. I'm going to have to work with the department heads to make sure that everything that we're going to put into Power School is loaded in a timely manner so that it'll be available for market period 2. Market period 1 is already set. We have to go with what we have, and we're going to make it work. But that's okay. Again, this is brand new. I expect there to be some issues, and so the earlier we find out exactly what those issues are, that'll be good. But Power School will be aligned with it. I'll talk about grading a little bit more. And Jim shot out a question. Tom looks like he has one. Please ask, because if you don't ask the question, chances are there's another person who has the same question who doesn't want to ask because, well, maybe I should already know this or whatever. We have to talk about this. We're not going to get any better standard-based grading if we're all going to just live in isolation and work by ourselves and just try to do what we think is the best thing. We're going to make mistakes. That's okay. Let's make them all together. Because once we learn, or once we make a mistake, we're going to make a correction. We can't keep repeating it. Okay, that's one thing, you know, as a parent, I can't stand my daughter because I don't care that she makes mistakes, but she keeps making the same one over and over again. Now I get mad. And I don't want us to keep doing the same thing. Making the same mistakes is stupid. We're not stupid.
It seemed like during the reading, there was an evolution where teachers would make the standard consistent in our school. Is that evolutionary plan that we will have to really put the standard into our school?
I'll repeat how I think I'm interpreting it. I think you're asking me, are we, the teachers, ever going to be the gatekeeper for establishing or writing what the standard is going to be, so that when we go to point our assignments, the drop-down menu will be the standard that we create ourselves. We will never probably have the ability to go ahead and, like, let's say it's like we leave here, you have a meeting with the folks in the department, you attend another meeting, you say, oh yeah, I want to add that. We're probably never going to have that capacity to go ahead and just add something, now it's there. What we'll always have to probably do is send things to MHAS, which is a group of people who manage the technological infrastructure for the district. We'll probably have to tell them, we want this to be reflected in the standards, and they'll load it for us. And the reason for that is because when it seems kind of silly, but they have to actually create a template for our report cards. And so it doesn't just take all the standards that are there and then just resize it, pagine it so that everything fits the way that we want. Like they have to actually create the template from scratch so that they know that there's 6 standards and we're going to measure the first market period for art. Well, they've already sized it for those 6. Now let's say second market period you want 9. They're going to have to readjust everything to make those 9. And that's why we have to submit what we want in advance. So that's coming. And I mentioned something about pointing assignments and stuff like that. And you'll see that better when you actually get it to Power School. Basically what happens is when you go into create an assignment, you'll give it a name, and then you'll be able to determine whether it's a homework assignment, whether it's a quiz, or whether it's through a drop-down. So I call that pointing. The same thing will happen for standards, because you'll be able to select more than one standard for any assignment, and especially for assessments. End market period assessment, or say you just read a novel or something. There's going to be more than one standard that any assessment is going to speak to, which means that a grade or an assignment could have as many as 3 or 4 different grades. And so again, that's new. That's a new way to think about something. To say, okay, in terms of this particular standard, this was a 3. In terms of these 2, it was only a 1. And so, okay, now we have to retrain ourselves on how do we get that student to make mastery or to make the progress to the acceptable points that we're looking for. We're really looking at three. If you take a look at this assignment, we'll this up for me, or the example of a grade level, I think that, if I'm reading this correctly, is that what's highlighted in white here is here's a homework assignment that that was given a grade, not the standard, 100 scale, which we'll never see again. But then there were two standards that were attached to it. So this particular teacher said, the student's going to demonstrate blah, 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 and then uses techniques. And so they were graded on a 4.0 rubric. Your assignments will look something like this minus this. Okay, so you'll have like say, it'll be, I think it's different colors or it's the same color. I can't remember what it is, but these standards will show up as the new assignments. Our school will give final grades in a particular standard. Okay, the grades are going to be compiled as an average of the last 4 grades that the student gets in that particular standard. There's lots of different ways to do this. That's just the one that we chose. As you do your reading or as you've done your reading, you're going to see that some folks make recommendations that you use the mode score. Okay? Some folks recommend that you take the median score. I have opinions, and that's why we went the way we did, which is the last 4. But that doesn't mean that's the way we have to do it. Some of you are going to collect data on your students, and you're going to come to me and see, and you're going to say, I think this is a better way to calculate final grades for particular standards. I'm all for it. I want to have the dialogue, I want to have the conversation. This is what was recommended. I listened to the reasons for it. It made sense. So this is what we're going to do. This is the type of explanation that you're going to need to be able to give to the parents. This letter kind of briefly outlines it. So when you have time, you should take a look at it. It just kind of explains why we're making the change. The federal government's come out and common core. They're outlining the skills that each student should have at the end of each particular grade. We want to make sure that we do that. We've run into problems with correlations between students' grades and students' test scores. Maybe in a week from now, we're going to get our test scores. It'll be a very stressful moment for them. Last year at that point in time, things kind of fell down around me. It was very difficult to explain to Steve what happened, because that was the question, what happened? What do we do differently from last year to this year to get these low scores? I didn't have any good answers. We made some changes last year, okay, to try to correct for that. Hopefully we have better news. I'm counting on it. It seemed like the stuff that we did over the course of the year was better in terms of the assessments that Kelly let us in, and that some of the assignments that teachers were given seem to be more closely correlated with what to expect on standardized testing. Okay? But we were looking at a bunch of scores, classroom grades of all A's. And then when we looked at what those 2 CMT scores were, they were like lows, 1s and 2s. How's that happening? How can we have students that are getting A's, but then not even approaching, not even mastery, but they're still basically below basic in class, in skills for that grade level? It doesn't make sense. Standard-based grading is going to help us identify what the specific needs are. Some of it could be is that the student presents well. They're nice kids, they're well-behaved, they don't cause any problems. You know I'll give a decent grade because of that. Because their academic behaviors, because the skills that they had socially allowed them to overcompensate for lack of knowledge, maybe not being able to read as well as some other folks. The standards-based grading is going to allow us to target the specific weaknesses of the student, as long as the teacher's doing their job. And we have to keep working at it and keep getting better. Yesterday I was at my brother's house, and both of his oldest boys go to a big picture school. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with big picture schools. We had a student, for those of you who were with us first year, Martika, I think you remember Martika, Steve, Woodruff, that's tall. She's still that tall. But anyway, she went to a big picture school in Rhode Island. I went to visit her because she's a really good kid, but he's always pushed us to say, hey, look, go out and visit other schools, see what goes on in other places. So I did. And I hated it. Like, I couldn't imagine working at a big picture school. It was too loosey-goosey, hippy-dippy, where, the kids create their own thing, and they, whatever, they wear hats, and it was like I almost fell over. But this school's kind of the same thing, and my brother's children are going through it, and while I respect my brother, I don't like the decision that he made to send his kids to this school. What they're doing in class, though, is what I'm trying to get us to do, and have these interesting conversations with students. He talked about, the oldest talked about that he didn't do well, I guess in Spanish. Like he didn't pass his last rubric or his last assessment, and because this for speech, because they went to visit someplace and he just didn't talk as much as he should have. And so he didn't fail for the year. There were like 5 other criteria that he did okay on, high enough that he was, to move on to the next level. But he talked about how when he didn't pass, like what were the things that he had to do? He had to talk to his teacher. He had to find out and get that perspective from the teacher as to what he needed to do in order to improve on speaking. He thought he did all right speaking with the kids at the other school. But the teacher gave him some ideas, some pointers, and told him to go to this other place. He had to go and do some work on his own, highlight homework, and come back and demonstrate that he had mastered or he had accomplished it. Now he did it at the end of the year with saying not needs, but he'll start off the year at least knowing what he needs to do at the beginning of the year to improve over the course of that year. And so that's kind of the conversation I'm trying to encourage you all to get to. Some of you are going to sit there and say, I got 26 kids in class. How the hell am I supposed to have a conversation on what the kid can do well and what they can't do well? I didn't say it was going to be easy. I didn't say that, well, this is going to be something that we've already got all these things in place and I have designs and whatnot. I can give you suggestions and you can tell me what you think. And that's where we got to start the year off, because we're going to make some, I think they're major, we're going to make some fundamental changes in how we're using seminar. I think that's a place where some of those conversations can be held. I think that if we utilize enrichment as effectively as we possibly can, I think that's another place. So I have possibilities, or I have answers to some of the questions, but that doesn't mean that they're the final answers. And we can always get better, again, in conversation. If you go through the letter, there's a scale here, 0 to 4. 4 being somebody who exceeds expectations. I asked my cousins, or my nephews, he said, hey, did you ever get like a 4, like say on an assignment, like take a quiz, you get it, you get them all right. He says, oh yeah, I get them all right on quizzes all the time. That's not a 4. If a student gets 100% on an assignment, that doesn't mean that they've exceeded the expectation. That just means they got everything right there. We have to understand, or come to the understanding, that if you're going to score a 4, or you're going to get an exceeds expectations, you have to take the common knowledge, or the knowledge and the skills being taught, and apply it in some way that's outside of the expectation of what everybody else is doing. Now, does that mean that you guys, if you try to do some extra stuff here and there? Yeah, it does. If you have a student as the exceptional student, it's your obligation. It's expected of you that you're going to come up with something that's going to allow that student who say can master, or is shown that they can do algebraic expressions, they can read and write, extremely well. Well, what are they going to do with it? And you will get better as an instructor the more that you do this. The first 1, first 2, the first 3 assignments that you give that are going to allow students the opportunity to prove or demonstrate that they have exceeded the expectations that you have for them. That's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. 1,000 years ago, I taught math at East Harbor High School, and I was doing okay. I thought I was all right. And then I started working. They hired there Scott, and there was like a paradigm shift for me where like I started giving more open-ended type of questions on my tests and quizzes and labs on the computers and stuff that really changed my instruction. I don't think I ever got to be as good as them at that. And we would have meetings and stuff like that on Friday nights, and we'd get together and we would talk about that. I mean, it's really corny, okay? I get that. Okay, but it was really enlightening in that the more that we taught, and the more that we did things, the more that I did things that were difficult for me that I had never done before, the easier it got. And then I was coming up with some of the ideas that they would take and use in their classes. They probably didn't use it, we said they did, but we did a lot of really cool work. And again, I understand that the first few times that you're going to attempt to do something different, it's going to be hard. It has to be. This is easy. Everybody would be doing it already. Okay? And we have to keep that in mind. It's the same expectation we have for the kids. We expect them to not get it the first time we teach them something. Because they theoretically should have never seen it before. If you're teaching somebody something in class and they get it all right the first time, then it's a lousy lesson. It was pointless. It just doesn't make any sense. We didn't understand what the students' needs were, and we didn't address them the most appropriately. If you flip the page, one thing I don't think for many folks, but it's something that I think parents need to understand that we do, that we're going to have a process for. It allows students to retake tests and quizzes or assessments, or to prove that they can or have mastered the skill that they've worked on. And we've come up with an outline for how that should look. Could you pass that up? But anyway, I think that one of the things that somebody picked up was
Assessment guidelines.
yeah, assessment guidelines. What's that? If you take a look at the assessment guidelines, basically, again, I'm not going to go over this, verbatim because I hope you all can read. But basically, it just says what the steps are for you to kind of follow at this point in time. And that is, and again, this is the very beginning. You need to start someplace. That doesn't mean that when you read this, you sit there and say, wow, this is like awesome. It's the best thing I ever read. It makes so much sense. I'm sure that you'll read it and you'll say, well, this doesn't make sense. We should do this or the other. That's fine. Make notes on it, cross it out, schedule an appointment, come to see me, send me an email, talk to department heads, talk to each other. Hey, I was thinking this. This seems to make more sense. What do you think? Anyway, so when you take a look at that, it gives us a framework for how to start this. Basically, the student, they take something and they didn't do well on it, just like my nephew, they have to make an appointment to meet with the teacher. Hey, what did I do wrong in this? What could I do better? How can I do it different? You need to go over the work with them and then give them something that's similar, give them problems that are going to allow them, or work that's going to allow them to demonstrate, yeah, now they got it, whatever it is. And then we have to make another appointment. If you haven't already then, I wouldn't probably be that organized. But then you see the kid again, or you have it right there, and you allow the student to demonstrate that they've got it, they've proven themselves. And then there's a way that goes into the grades and replaces something. We don't need to talk about that now. Okay, because right now we shouldn't be making up anything right here at the beginning of the point. But there is a process, and it's important that families know the process, and it's important that you know the process, and we're all on the same page, because I can't have teachers freelancing, doing their own thing, because then I get calls from parents who say, well, Ms. James lets my kid do this, but Ms. Millsaps doesn't. I don't understand what's the difference. And we can't have that. We also can't have parents saying, like, well, dictating to us how this is going to happen. So here's how we do it. And again, we can make changes. There's going to be a process to it. There'll be something that comes through me, I'll run it through Steve, and then we'll filter it back to everybody else. Yes.
Was that based on the number of times the student makes up something? For standard, one student might have 5 assignments, and the other student might have 3 based on the fact that he came in and redid, or not redid, but that he did more assignments.
Right. I think what Scott's asking is like if I had given 3 assessments, the student taken 3. Over the course of the marking period, and then Jim came in and did 2 more, then he would have 5. And it won't, that's not how, I think what we're going to end up doing is going and replacing grades. Okay, but we'll replace grades, and then there's a place to make notes. And again, I can't get into Power School right now to show you, or else that would be part of this PV as well. Okay, the district, in its infinite wisdom, is doing something called a rollover on the 29th. I think that's tomorrow. So Power School will be down until midnight, and so then on Saturday, we go what we call live. Like the schedules for everybody is in Power School, but it's in something called Power Schedule. It's not live yet. If they roll us over, this is what happened last year. I don't know if anybody remembers that there were some problems with the schedule last year. It's because they rolled us over early because of our school year, and then they rolled the district over after that, and then they wiped out everything that we did, which was a pain for me. So they said, well, we shouldn't do that this year, and I agree. But what that does is it means that we'll have to come in over the weekend to print schedules, and then I can show something. But we're not doing PD on the 1st or 2nd, so it's just the way it worked out this year. So there'll be more information coming to you. Hopefully, we'll get more stuff that you can see. Okay, here's where you got to go. But we're going to have to help each other out. People have to feel comfortable saying, "I don't know," okay? Because you have to. You have to ask the question, and it's not an indictment. I don't judge people based on what they say they don't know as much as what they produce. Okay? And so if you're going to go through and act like you know everything, but then you produce something that clearly demonstrates that you don't, now we're going to be at loggerheads. But if you say all along, hey, I really struggle with this, can you help me? Yeah, we'll probably get sick and tired of each other at some point in time, but we'll both be on the same page, and the kids and the families are going to benefit, which is what it's all about.
Well, look if you can. I mean, we've given you a lot of information very early on. We should do a check, just some of the thoughts that you're having about standards-based grading. Has anyone ever done it before?
The math department started last year, the high school math department.
When I to ask the math department in a second to talk about some of your experiences. Anyone, anywhere, ever done standards-based grading?
I did it last year.
Yep, pre-K. Anyone else? Okay. So if we can just take a couple seconds, yes?
I thought I did, but when I think of the progress monitoring, or, where they're retesting, reassessing, that's new.
Okay. I want to start to talk about this. Remember, one of the things that we mentioned was that we, as a school, are assessed based upon our students' overall performance on state standardized examinations. It's just that simple. And there are skills that are outlined in the state standardized assessments that our children need to know and be able to do. And in some schools, they say they don't like to teach